Hey, good morning, gang. Welcome to another broadcast of Open Pagan Church. And we've been doing a little playing with the video and the streaming and green screen and what have you. Hopefully, we got to dye it a little darker green. So, yep, looks like looks like people are streaming in. No pun intended. So, what is our topic? Well, pagan individuality. Pagan individuality. And I started this morning with a song from Phil Collins, Coming in the Air Tonight. Kind of has a special meaning with society here in 2018. It's kind of weird. May sound a little, I don't know, negative. But we live in a time of monkey see, monkey do. We live in a time where people want to keep up with the Joneses next door. We live in a time where everybody wants to be a cookie cutter. If you're not like everybody else, you don't belong. Pagan individuality. Quite a few pagan societies, if you will, are sadly much the same. Now, some of you know me, know that I'm a pagan minister, but I'm also the master of a grove of shaman. In the grove of shamanism, each of us have our own individuality. Robert overslept, missed the opening. Topic today is pagan individuality. In the grove of Celtic shaman, though we follow a particular specific tradition, each of us do things within the tradition our own way. We have a different council that we follow, some of us have different deity structure. Some of those who have graduated through the Grove of the Celtic Shaman have a council, but they're unnamed, perfectly fine. Pagans, at the core, we try to teach our students in the basic pagan philosophy to follow that which is right for you, to live as best as you can, be as honorable as you possibly can. The issue with today's society, and Phil Collins said it perfectly. How many of us would actually help another that we saw drowning? Or would we move on and it's not our problem? Society teaches us not to get involved. They teach us to stay out of it because it's not our business. Well, sometimes I tend to agree with that. A lot of times we need to get involved. Pagan individuality should be implemented in everything we do. Granted, I'm a firm believer in traditions, the following of traditions, to a degree, right? Each of us can only follow a tradition within our own variable, comfortable ideology. Michelle says it depends on who it is and the situation. You're absolutely right. Situational idealism. Also, what about convenient idealism? This is where humans are at most of the time today. Convenient idealism, convenient religion, convenient spirituality, and convenient time to do anything outside of our own video games, our own televisions, our own cell phones, and our own computers. Convenient individuality comes to each one of us who can get off of our ass and make a difference. Pagan individuality is no different. Each of us want to do our own things. We don't want to be chastised by somebody else. We want the government to stay out of our living rooms, our bedrooms, and our homes and our lives. But then again, today, how many people, pagans, Christians, people of all religions, look to the school for the responsibility of the raising of their children? When parents are not parents and their kids are arrested for whatever reason, robbery, murder, drugs, dealing, buying, using, whatever, the parents want to blame it on somebody else, but they want to claim individuality. Me? If I was walking in a park and I saw someone drowning, cell phone goes one way, wallet goes the other, shoes come off, and I'm in the brink after them. That's just who I am. Do I expect the same out of everyone else? Not at all. So we have convenient spiritualism, convenient involvement, convenient individuality, if it's convenient, we're all for it. When I made my decision back before 2000 that paganism would be my mainstay religion, at that time I had no idea of my path. I did, but I didn't. And one of the things that I wanted to make a difference, one of the things I wanted to make a difference in the community is I didn't want the pagan community to be like the Christian communities that I came out of. If it was convenient, they got involved. If it was convenient, they would lend a hand. If it was convenient, they would do something. The first 3-4 years of the HOP, I was disappointed. I had a major enlightenment that the groups of people, not all, but many of the groups of people that came to stand in circle with the HOP, and much of the time there were a lot of people. But the biggest complaint that I ever had was, why isn't everybody doing the same thing in circle? Everybody should be coming together and doing the same thing in circle. Why does everybody have to do the same thing in circle? Pagan individuality is just that. It's allowing you to bring your energy, stand with us, lend your energy to the circle. With a topic of pagan individuality, that actually could come into hours of discussion, but I won't do that to you. Don't want to take that much of your day. But my question to you, whether you're pagan or not, because we have non pagan folk, atheist folk who watch our broadcast. So, my question to you is, are you an individual? Do you do your own thing? Even though you may claim to be pagan, okay, fine. Do you do your own thing? At the end of the day, and I mean this with all heartfelt trueness, I have never believed in, still have a problem understanding, pagan Christian or Christian pagan. By the bare definition, they can't be. But hey, as a pagan minister, I get it. Hey, Jennifer, long time no see. As a pagan minister, I get it. People want to do what's right for them. They want to do what makes them feel best. And you know, it's interesting that we get a lot of folk coming over to the pagan philosophy. We get a lot of people coming over to the pagan philosophy from, most of the time, a very browbeat, very fundamentalist Christian household. So I've noticed some of these people that they want to try to step into it slow. They want to try to keep the pantheon that they were raised with. One God, one Savior, that's it. While they come over to the multiple gods and goddesses, the earth as mother, polytheistic pantheons, idealisms, openness of freedom of who you are, they're not comfortable with individuality. They're really not. There are so many people who are not comfortable with individuality. They don't know what true individuality is. And I do want to apologize real quick. You will see me periodically check my phone. I am on call this week for emergency services for my job. So if I get an emergency call, I'll be poof, I'm gone. Unfortunately. But it is that individuality in the pagan philosophy that affords us the ability to say, you know, okay, I hope. I don't get it. Like I say, by definition, it makes no sense. Michelle says, how do you do both? Agreed. Raised Catholic. Well, if you look at the pantheon of Catholicism, Catholics are pagan too. They just won't admit it. But, yep, allergies have jumped up and slapped us, let me tell you. How, this may be a very rhetorical question. How do we maintain pagan individuality and still stand up for our belief and our foundation of pagan philosophy. I'm talking about the base core of pagan philosophy. I'm not talking about your Wicca, witchcraft, druid, fae, shaman, Asatru, Nordic, whatever. I'm not talking about your chosen path. I'm talking about your spiritual foundation of pagan philosophy. When you're looking at who you are and where you're going, you want to keep that independence. One of the big draws to paganism is independence. The ability to make your own choices and do your own thing with a boatload of people not chastising you and going, "Oh, you sinner, you're going to go to hell." Not our thing. It's not my job. Not my job to tell you you're going to move forward to Valhalla, you're going to sit for a bit, you're going to go to purgatory, you're going to go to wherever it is you believe you're going to go to. It's not my job. Nor do I pretend for it to be my job. I'm not a preacher. I don't preach the word. I'm a minister. I help you find your way, not my way. I've said that a million times. I'm not going to point you in my direction. I'm going to point you in whatever direction that you're comfortable with, but what I'm going to do is try to help you stay centered. And that's what most pagan ministers I know of do. They don't want to tell you who and what you are. But it's that very individuality that in multiple witch covens, even though you may be Gardnerian or Alexandrian, I used to know a lady down south that brought the Alexandrian tradition to Houston. She had a large coven. A lot of people, as they went through their dedications, up through their first, second, third degree, whatever, however that works, they split off and did their own thing. Though they were still following the core Alexandrian philosophy, they split off and they did their own thing. Pagan individuality. I've met some Christians who hypothesize Christian individuality. Okay, I've seen it. However, every Christian I've ever met, good, bad, or indifferent, has followed the proselytize philosophy. Even those open-minded ones that says, you have your belief, I get that, I embrace that. But every one of them I've ever talked to ended the conversation with, but if you don't believe in God, you're going to go to hell. Well, okay, I believe in God. I also believe in Goddess. I don't believe in hell. So, where am I going? Well, I know where I think I'm going. I'm going to be recycled and plopped out again like a turd and regrow and repeat some things and learn a little more. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know, and they're not talking. Or if they are, I haven't heard it. And people want their independence, their individuality. They want their own way of doing things. And at the same time, they want guidance. They want someone or something to give them guidance and remind them on occasion there is something out there bigger than yourself. There is an entire world out there that is much bigger than you. One of my favorite sayings is, I am but a speck of sand on a really big beach. And if you think about it, we are. We are but a tiny speck of sand on a great, big, huge beach. 2/3 of the world is water. Well, in reality, 2/3 of the world is covered by water. 100% of the world is a great big rock covered with all kinds of beauty. Plants, flowers, trees, water, people, bugs, reptiles, mammals, things. Most of which human beings haven't even discovered yet. But it's that independence, that individuality that gives us the ability to drive forward. The freedom of choice to choose our own path. Now, those of us that are in, quote, and I quote, democratic societies, we, quote, have that freedom to choose our individual paths, religions, thoughts, philosophies, ideologies, and lifestyles. As long as it don't offend the neighbor. As long as we don't post on Facebook that offends somebody else, we're doing fine. Me? I don't go out of my way to offend folk because I am into independent individuality and the freedom of thinking and the freedom of the will to do so. And I warn people when they join my Facebook, when they tag me as friend, if they're from work, I send them a private message and I say, this is a warning to you. I am not politically correct on my Facebook, and my Facebook does not reflect my ability to work or perform my duties at blah blah blah. So you will not hurt my feelings if you see something that offends you if you delete me as friend. However, if you attack me for posting my own thoughts and ideas and philosophies, I will attack back. And I'll tell you, there's some really good stuff flipping through over here in the chat. So if those of you are watching our broadcast pre-recorded on our other social networks where we post, if you want to read those posts, you'll have to come over to Open Pagan Church in Facebook and read them. Little plug there for Open Pagan Church, if you will. So what are your thoughts about, good morning, Cindy. What are your thoughts about pagan individuality, which is our topic? What do you do, even though you may follow, those of you watching might be oath to a tradition, those of you following may refuse to oath to a tradition, and those of you following may even really not even know if you're pagan yet. Hell, you may not even know if you believe in yourself yet. And one of the things I teach is until you can believe in yourself and who and what you are, you're going to find it really, really difficult to believe in anything outside of yourself. You have to build your self-esteem a bit. You have to believe in yourself and the belief that what you're doing is the right thing. If you spend every day of your life questioning everything that you do, then what are you doing? But what do you think? You guys watching our broadcast, either live or pre-recorded, so let's take a minute, right? We're 57 minutes past the hour. We're going to take just a minute because, well, I need to clean the pipes and clear the voice and what have you. So I'll be back with you, about a minute, minute and a half, maybe-ish.
I'm Ray, and I quit smoking with Chantix. In the movies, a lot of times I
Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? Those of you that stepped away real quick to get you another cup of coffee or maybe another drink or take a quick potty break, you go right ahead. But here's a question for you. Do you know who you are? Do you know your own individuality? Do you even realize that you have individuality? Most of us are raised. We are programmed from a little bitty thing. Do as you're told. Do what I tell you. Do as I say, don't do as I do. You have to be like everybody else if you're going to get along in this world. You have to follow society. You have to do what the preacher tells you, because if you don't, you'll go to hell. You have to do exactly as you're told. Everybody follows the same rule. Now let's think about this. Let's think about the precedent that sets up. What does that set up in our kids? Does it set up independent thinking? Does it set up the ability to think outside the box? Does it teach our children to be leaders and know how to follow and know how to get the hell out of the way if they need to? What does it teach our children? What does it teach individuals? Now I can tell you that when you're in a company setting at a corporation, and that corporation has strict ABC guidelines, to keep your job and to have a job, those of us, and I'll admit it, those of us that have issues with not necessarily authority, but cookie cutter authority. Those of us that have issues with cookie cutter authority, sometimes we have issues with that. I know I do. I am an individual thinker. I'm an independent thinker. I think outside the box. Michelle says, to thine own self be true. That, in today's society, is a misnomer. It is open to interpretation just as much as a tradition is open to interpretation in a religious philosophy. Debbie says, yeah, so many people have told me I'm a unique individual. Phew! Right there with you. Absolutely. Cindy's telling us about her wedding vows when she got married. They have their own bubble. What? Oh, bubble? Yeah. Okay. Everybody's got a bubble. We talked about the bubble in one of the videos. But when your bubble becomes destructive because you don't know what's going on outside the bubble, and you're so comfortable inside your wee little bubble that you don't want to know what's going on outside your bubble, I call that cubicalistic mentality. Cubicalistic mentality in nothing happens outside these walls that can affect me. Bullshit, I say, because most everything that happens outside those walls does in some way, can somehow affect you. We still have to progress our own individuality, but we also have to temper that with an understanding of when in their house, follow their rules within reason. Let me say that again. When in their house, follow their rules within reason. In my job, which changed, boy did it change, about a year ago. I went from full open technician, one-stop shop, phone rings, fix the problem, to an analyst. Not a technician, but an analyst. What an analyst does is we analyze the issue, we document the problem, and we kick the can to somebody else to fix, even though I can fix it. I don't mind telling you that stroke is a problem for me and people with individualistic thought processes. I have had to rethink my work ethic at work. Not at home, not when I'm working with other people, helping them do things, but when I am at work earning a living, I have to do things cookie cutter, ABC. All of my out of the box thinking has had to be segregated, put away on the shelf. When I walk in that door, I am a number. And as long as I work there, I have to be a number. Now I'm sitting here talking about pagan individuality. And then I'm sitting here telling you, when you're in someone's home, work, job, workplace, you have to follow their rule. And the true fact of it is, if you can't or you won't, get out. My boss essentially told me the same thing. That's not your job anymore. This is your job now. If you can't do it, adios. There's the flow, there's the dough. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out. Welcome to the facts of life, ladies and gentlemen. Individuality is good. Tempered with balance. Now let me ask you a question. Pagans are about balance, aren't we? The balance of masculine and feminine, not necessarily man, woman, male, female, But the balance of the masculine and feminine, the acceptance of that balance. Some days in my household, I let my wife take it and run with it. Some days in our household, she lets me take it and run with it. We find that balance of masculine and feminine. The different things that we do are the different things that we do within the capabilities of our own bodies. We still have that individuality, though. So relationships are not that much different. Relationships, you have a little more autonomy than you do with a job. In a job, the boss says, my way or the highway. And in a relationship, you have boundaries. There are some things that you're willing to change and waver on, and there are some things that you're not willing to change and you're not willing to waver on. Some things that 10 or 15 years ago you wouldn't bend on at all. You're just rigid as a board. You kind of come to the decision over time, okay, if that's the way it's going to be what it is. But you still have that individuality. When you're dealing with politics, oh boy, when you're dealing with politics, there's very little individuality in politics. There have been many, many, many people in politics that started out to do really good things. Seriously, I mean, they set out to do some really good things. And by the time they get in whatever political arena they're in, they're no longer allowed to think for themselves. They're beat down with sociological, philosophical laws, rules, and regulations, and they're just more or less beat into submission by the very politics in which they wanted to change. So before they know it, they're right back in that cookie cutter stamp philosophy. They got that cookie cutter and they go thump, thump, thump. They bring you in, they shape-shift you the way they want, they smack you a couple of times, and then they mold you into what they think you want to be, and out the door you go. As long as you do what you're told, you're a good politician. Oh, you're supposed to be here by the people, for the people? No. You're here for my pocketbook, and you better grease it with money. Yeah. That's the reason I got out of politics. 10, 15 years ago, got out of politics. To hell with that. Individuality. It's very important for not just pagans, but for humans to experience and reach out for that individualism, to be our own person, a free thinker, that which we want as our own. How do we do that? We're 15 minutes into the second half of our broadcast. And I guess my question to you, something to think about. Do you trust yourself enough to be an independent thinker? Or have you not found the balance to lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way? Now, just because you know how to lead, follow, and get out of the way doesn't mean you're not an independent thinker. It means you have enough faith in yourself to know when to step aside, to know when to step up, or to know when to step back. For me, stepping back, that's my problem. I'm okay getting out of the way. I'm okay leading. But unless I trust the person that I'm following, I tend to follow, but with trepidation, with caution. I've always told people that come to me for wisdom, do not take everything I say as law. Do not take everything I say as the gospel. I am coming at it with an opinion, with a philosophy, with an ideology based on experience, education, and just plain old ass, I say again, experience. Things I've seen, witnessed, heard, been involved in. I always say sometimes, I've been shot at and missed and shit at and hit. And that's okay. But are you capable of formulating an independent ideological philosophy, independent thought for yourself, while still being able to continue in life because there's that balance. There's that balance of individuality, and then there is the balance of doing what needs to be done best by society. Well, that sounded like a complete contradiction in terms. Let me tell you, in case you didn't already know, living, interacting with, being productive in, and working with a large society, you will spend a lot of time in a contradiction of terms. If you want my advice, be who you are. Know when to temper the who you are, but don't ever lose who you are. Be true to yourself, because if you're not true to yourself, you're never actually going to be true to anyone else. And if you can't be true to anyone else, and you can't be true to yourself, then you find yourself doing this in a complete and utter circle with absolutely no place to go. Pagan individuality is a good thing. Each of us in our own varied, wide-ass traditions, we are who we are. We have our thoughts, our beliefs, and no one should try to take that away from us. If you are afraid of yourself to be an independent thinker, reach out to someone that you trust to help you through it, someone that'll listen to you, someone that when they offer up advice, they don't sit there and say, well, you need to blah, blah, blah. They will come at it with, what about? What do you think about? They're going to make the choice yours. They're going to make the job at hand to make those changes your responsibility. How many times have I told people I can't tell you what to do? I can't even necessarily tell you what not to do. Although I have been known to look at people and ask them if they've lost their freaking minds. Think about it. Pagan individuality begins with human individuality. It begins with human individuality and the ability to stand up and think for yourself. Worth a thought. But I'm going to give you the rest of your day back. I do want to thank you for watching our topic of pagan individuality. And we'll see you next week, right here, Open Pagan Church. Have a great day and have a good week.